Hello, everyone. Welcome to North of 60. I'm Heidi Schweighofer. I have Lynne Poulton here as a guest today. Lynne is a professional organizer and someone I think we could all use at some point in our lives. I know that at some point my husband and I will downsize, and I think that that puts true fear in my heart because of all the stuff that we have accumulated over 36 years of marriage. So I want to say hi to you, Lynne.
Hi, Heidi. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how you started the business.
Sure. So I went to school to be a social worker. So I started working with welfare to work and people who had prior convictions. So helping people job search. And part of that is getting organized. And there was a TV show called Clean Sweep. I don't know.
Yes, I do remember that.
Remember Niecy with the big flower?
Yes.
And so I realized that there were people that did that, you know, for a living. And I was just fascinated. So that was 2003. So we're talking, 16 years ago. And I continued to work in the social work arena and always thought that's something that I would want to do. Fast forward to 2011, I went part-time at my social work job and developed my business and launched in 2012 and been going ever since.
Now you're certified.
Yes.
So what does that mean, Lynne?
That's a really great question. So certified means that I have read lots of books and that I've taken lots of classes and then I sat for an exam. So I've learned about the aging process, the managing time, ADHD, how to go through the process of going through people's belongings, a lot of studies, and then taking the exam. And then in addition, I have another certification that focuses entirely on chronic disorganization. So people that have been disorganized for a long time have never really figured it out, like how to get organized.
Right.
And maybe it's a neurological thing, maybe it's hoarding disorder, maybe it's ADHD, maybe it's depression, grief. There's so many things, right? That contribute to people's disorganization. So that was an 18-month program where I had a mentor. So all of that to say is that I'm committed to the industry.
You sure are.
And I'm one of the only in Northeast Ohio that has those two certifications and then an LSW. So
are you, when I watch television and have to admit that I love the hoarding show, just because it's so different from the way we live. Do you enter situations like that as well? You go in and help with homes that are true hoarding situations?
So I am qualified to do that, yes. And I can't say that I have people with hoarding disorder knocking down my door, because one of the key components is that people are embarrassed of that situation.
I would imagine.
And may have not let anybody in their home for 10 years. So I am qualified. I also have many other organizers and other resources so that if I'm not able to do the work, that I can bring in other people.
Good.
Because my business, Wholly Organized, is me. And then I tap into so many different resources. So
busy woman.
Yes.
Now, all right, let's say that we're going to downsize. So David and I are in a 4-bedroom colonial, and we've been married 36 years, and we've had a child and animals and all of the stuff that people have. And I want to move us into maybe a 2-bedroom, maybe one of the homes that's being built in downtown Hudson in the near future. I don't even know where to begin. So how would I begin the downsizing process?
Well, the first thing is, kind of checking in, like, you want to do this. You're choosing to do this.
Yes.
Because many people, are forced into the situation of downsizing because of maybe a medical thing, financial. There's, an array of reasons, right?
Sure.
Or somebody lost their spouse and they can't keep up the home. So the first thing is, well, okay, what am I trying to do? I think, the reason why we're moving is because it's too much house. I mean, is that kind of Okay, and
Too much
maybe
house, don't want to have to take care of it anymore, don't
Okay.
want to have to deal with the yard and all of that
right,
stuff.
and maybe stairs.
And it has stairs, and as
Yeah.
we get older, that's a consideration.
Yeah, so I think it's great that you're thinking about it because you are able to make the decision. This is what we want to do. We're going to move, and if you're a timeline kind of person, maybe you want to move in a couple years. So
Right.
what would you do to start?
Yeah.
Start looking around. There's, not just one way to go about the process of downsizing the stuff. There's, you can kind of do a treasure hunt in each room and start to select things that just you don't see yourself paying to move or, enjoying that thing anymore. Sometimes we just get so used to our surroundings that we don't kind of look at it in a different light, like, oh, actually, I've had that for 15 years and I don't really like it anymore. I'm different. So that could be it.
Exactly. Or it's
Right.
in a bedroom that is simply not used when you have that many bedrooms and two people living in the house.
Yeah, so you think about, you're going to move, let's say you're moving into a 2-bedroom place. I mean, if I was working with you and you found that place, then we would figure out what furniture that you have that would fit. And then start
Okay.
to, explore. I like to include family members, to find out, is there anybody that's interested in anything? And then, start to kind of pick a place because, many people have collected things, we accumulate stuff and we put it in the basement maybe.
Yep.
There's all different kinds of
Yep.
people. So we've got the
Yep.
savers and we've got the people that just toss things all the time.
Or garage sailors who will,
Okay.
I will have every couple of years garage sale and try to
Okay.
get rid of stuff.
Okay.
But
So, it's really, taking stock of what do you own and, what might you see paying to move? Is there anybody else that wants any of these items? And, picking an area and starting. I mean, that's the biggest thing is to start.
Just starting.
Well, and that just start is really difficult for many people. And that's where hiring a professional organizer can be really useful.
now I have a friend who recently downsized, excuse me, in the last 6 months, and they had an estate sale with, I would have to honestly say 90% of theirs. She wanted to start clean and start new.
Okay.
So is that an alternative? Is that something you think is a good idea to
Sure.
decide I don't want it and here's where somebody else can buy it?
So it's checking in with yourself and figuring out, do I
Yeah.
want to make money? Do I want to donate things? Do
Oh.
I want, what is it that I'm going to move? And then having somebody come in, I partner with estate sellers. You can have somebody come in and kind of assess and say, here, they give you a proposal. And typically an estate seller will want something between $10,000 to $15,000 worth of sellable items to make it profitable.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it really depends on, just the quantity of stuff that you have, whether you have collectibles or French furniture, certain things that, are appealing to people.
Okay.
And so certainly that is an option. So when I work with a family, kind of ask that, what are we trying to do? Get out of here really quickly. Are we wanting to make money? Do we want to support a cause that we really care about? So gauge the goals, right?
All right.
And then I provide all sorts of, options depending on the comfort level.
One of the things that I have noticed, and I've been hearing about this, it's certainly, I think, going to be the case with us, is that our children live a very different way from the way many of us baby boomers live. And I have inherited some of my mother's furniture, my grandmother's furniture in
Right.
China, and things that are truly meaningful to me, but I don't believe that they'll be as meaningful for my daughter, for example. And I don't want to unload a house full of furniture on her and say, here, you have to have this. How do we assess value? I don't mean just sentimental value. But some things that I've been told were expensive, or this thing is from, the year 1800.
Right.
How do I go about doing that? Do you do that, or do you have people that do that?
So, yes, I have a network of people that can appraise things, that can take a look at things to just get, based on our market here, what things would sell, whether it's in a consignment store or it's online,
I
or
never
it's
thought of that.
during a house estate sale, it depends. But I don't have the knowledge personally. I mean, I know some things that I can, a Miro, a Picasso,
Right.
Certain things like that. But I tap into my resources. And what you bring up, the value, like this process is it's a physical process to get through all this stuff.
Yep.
And it's an emotional process.
Very,
right?
I imagine very emotional.
Right. So, the china that you've been given, or,
Right.
the furniture that's been in the family, and then, perhaps your kids, like they have enough stuff of their own.
Exactly.
Or it's not their style, or whatever the process, the situation is, then, that's a hurdle for people to get over that emotional, feeling like nobody wants my stuff. And it's not that it's not appreciated or that it's trash. It's just not fitting with, the people in your life. And so that's when, we try to look at, well, is it sellable? Could it benefit someone that needs furniture? So but that's a
Okay.
really difficult part of the process.
I would imagine. I think that those of us who are older really have generally collected things that are given to us by family. And maybe we don't love everything, but it's also then there's, well, I got this from my great grandmother.
Right.
And so you just feel so guilty about getting rid of anything.
Well, I draw on and share my personal experience when it's appropriate, and I had my grandmother's china, and I remember eating off of it when I was at
Yes.
her house. And
Yes.
and I carried that stuff in boxes for 15 years, and I didn't unpack it until I think it was 8 years ago. And when I unpacked it and I used it for Thanksgiving dinner with the family, people commented that, wow, the plates are so small, because they were smaller.
That is
back,
so true.
right?
Everything is small.
Right. And so
Yes.
there was that challenge. And then I really looked at it and I thought, this isn't really that pretty. And there's some chips on it. And so, I've been working with people for 7 years. I'm not immune to these situations in my own life about, what do I do with things that are given to me, right?
Yeah.
And so I took a hard look and I thought, you know what, this isn't really being used. It's just sitting in here and taking up space, and I'm not appreciating it. So I kept a server with a covered server.
Good
and
idea.
I kept the gravy boat, because you can never have too many gravy boats.
Good idea. So you've kept the things that still will remind you of your grandma.
Right,
but
and I can use them.
yes, and you can use them.
And then I sold
that's a very
the china.
good idea.
I sold the china. Now, this is probably going to be shocking to people, but $60 at
know.
an antique store.
I
But you know
know.
what? It left, and somebody is appreciating it.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Oh, that's
value is very subjective, right? It's
Yep.
like selling a house.
Yep.
You're going to get what somebody's willing to offer to you,
Yep.
right? And so it's that letting go of, oh, we spent $1,000 on this. Well, it hasn't held value the way that we thought. That's like,
I hear that from people all the time.
Yeah.
I was told by my mother that this is an extremely valuable whatever.
Hummel,
Oh, Lord. Don't even bring
Yadro,
up Hummel.
Crystal. I mean, all of it, and that's
we
what
were
many
inundated,
people have.
my sister and I, with Hummels, believe me. So I know,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, so I mean, there is a market sometimes, but it's it's looking at it a little differently. It
Yes.
might be, we're going to try to sell all of the Hummels at once rather than one at a time.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Now, when you go into a house,
Yes.
so I'm sure there are other things that then, what do you do with? Here's an example. Paint, old paint that's been sitting in the basement for 40 years. Or in my one of my family members' case, there are mercury thermometers. There are bottles of turpentine and things that I think I have no idea why. I know I can't take it to the dump or take it out to recycle. What do you do? How do you work with a landfill and
Right. So part of my work with clients is education, right? About what to do with all this stuff. And so if it's 40-year-old paint, then you're probably not going to leave it for the next owner.
No.
So if it's latex paint, and this is getting nitty-gritty, but you open
just
it up.
some examples?
Yeah, I mean, you open it up and you put kitty litter in it and you let it dry out and you can throw that in your trash. If it's chemicals, then you're going to want to take that, here we are in Summit County, you want to take that up to Summit Reworks on Graham and 8.
Oh,
And-
I've heard of that.
Yeah, and so they're open from the middle of June until the middle of September, so that window, and you can drive in, it's Thursday evenings, and you can, or afternoons, it's like 2 to 8, right? But you can look at Summit Reworks, and you drive in and they take all of that stuff out of your car. You don't have to get out of your car, and then they recycle that properly. So we're talking about batteries, light
Yes.
bulbs, bug spray, any kind of chemical that you no
Okay.
longer need. Please don't throw it, in the trash.
Oh, I know. That's
Yeah.
it worries me terribly that it could end up in a landfill and
Yes.
then. Now, what you told me something about, I think that most people don't know about UPS. Mention that again.
Yeah, so UPS will, they'll recycle styrofoam. So talking about the styrofoam that's around televisions and packaging, not your burger container, not food related styrofoam, but that stuff. And they use it for people that don't want to spend the money on packing material, and then they can use it to pack things that they ship.
That I
Yeah.
never knew
So,
that.
I mean, you want to
These
check
are
your local,
great
your local
suggestions.
UPS. I
Yeah.
know the one in Akron does, but
Okay.
But
All right.
yeah, that's just kind of nice. Then you don't have that going into the
Oh,
landfill.
I had no idea. I
Right.
really didn't.
Yeah.
Now, you have, one of my questions is how can you help? And
Yes.
you have now described for 20 minutes how you can help. What does it cost for, you don't have to be specific if you don't want to, but what does it, do you work by the hour, Lynn, or
I
do you
do.
work by the project?
I do. Yes, and the reason why I work by the hour is because the decision-making process, which you can imagine,
Yep.
is
Yep.
really hard to predict. And my work is really about, it's the person first. I work directly with the person, right, to identify the goals and the needs and their feelings about this process. And then we figure out when we're going to work together. And I usually work with people for about a 3-hour period of time.
Okay.
So
Initially.
maybe initially, and it all depends on the timing. And so it's hourly because we set certain amount of time to work with each other, and then we can figure out, well, who else can we bring in? So my hourly rate is $70 an hour, and I don't want that to scare people because I also have people that are subcontractors, and there's other services that
Right,
come in.
right.
And to give people kind of a ballpark, I've worked, again, all situations are
Sure,
unique. So
sure.
it could be that the person has had to move out of their house, and it might be, your parents' home,
Yeah.
and everything needs to get removed and the house needs to go on the market.
Exactly.
Or it
I
could
might be
be-
facing that at some point.
Right, or it could be that, you've lost your spouse and you want to move within a certain amount of time.
Yes.
I have clients that I've been working with for the last 2 or 3 years, and they're in their 60s, and they know in the next 10 years that they want to move out or less. And so I work with them every other week.
Oh,
for
how
3
interesting.
hours to
To go in
process.
and start going the
Yeah,
room by room
right.
and what do you want?
Yes,
Yeah.
because we all have busy lives and a lot of other things to be doing than
Right.
organizing.
Right.
If we start, then by the time it gets to I'm gotta move, it's not such a hasty thing. So,
Or overwhelming.
right. So
Yeah.
all of these different scenarios, I've helped to process. I say process because it's really getting through all of the stuff, what needs to be shredded, recycled, going to people, selling, if we're
Right.
preparing for a house sale, whatever it is, it can cost, it could cost $2,500 to
Okay.
$8,000. It really depends.
Sure.
On the quantity of
Stuff and the size, yeah, the
and
size
the
of the house.
decision-making
Yeah.
ability and how much somebody wants to work on things their own. So they may say, I might have a client that says, oh, I can sort that stuff, those boxes. I don't want to use your time to do that. But what I want you to help me with is figure out a plan
Yes.
and help me stay focused. When I start working on something, I'll go over there and get distracted and forget what
Yes.
I'm doing.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Well, and I think just someone coming in and working as an objective person when it comes to the emotional attachment we have to our stuff. That to me would be so valuable to have you be able to say, look, you've got this room full of furniture. You don't want to take it to the next house. Your daughter doesn't want it. Let's figure out together what to do with it.
Well, and what feels good.
And what feels good. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I want to know, I have two questions.
Yeah.
Are you ever hired by attorneys or families after someone is deceased?
All the time.
To come in and to...
Yeah, so it's the relationships that I've built with attorneys and family members. And, we talk through and find out, well, what do we know needs to happen? And what's the time frame? What are we trying to accomplish? And then I provide a proposal and we see if it's a good fit.
Now, are you given guidance in the case of an attorney, for example, hiring you? Are you given guidance in terms of this person wanted to have their entire flower prints donated to the museum, or
Yes.
I'm being kind of silly
Yes.
with that, but are you given that kind of guidance?
Sometimes.
Or do you?
Yeah.
And then do you have someone who would have to then help you with, again, the valuation of whatever?
Yeah, I can bring in an appraiser. Yeah, absolutely. So, the situation is just so personal, right?
Oh,
In
yes, it is.
what we're going to do, and it's a very intimate experience if I'm working alongside with people, and if I'm hired by an attorney and I'm in a home working through, by myself or with a team, it's a privilege to be in a home.
How
And-
nice for you to think that way.
Well,
That's
because
wonderful.
I find money, I find jewelry, and so
Oh,
people
sure.
trusting me. I mean, I'm given keys to work in these homes, and I have utmost respect for the belongings and the things that I find. I mean, often, I'm in a home and they think that it can all go, whether it's donated or sold, but I find letters or photos or money, and those
Yeah.
things, it's like
Yeah.
family to review, because they need to see this stuff, and then it's up to them. I have no judgment
No.
on what someone
okay.
wants to do with their things. I don't go in with any kind of an agenda to say you should do this.
Good.
My process and how I help people is to ask questions based on what they said that they wanted to do. And, sometimes we have to ponder some
Yeah.
of these decisions.
Sure.
We don't know, like in the instant that we see something, that it can go. Think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have about 5 minutes left, and I
Okay.
would imagine that you have some fascinating stories. Tell me about someone.
Well, and my work is confidential.
Oh, of course. I don't mean to name names here.
And I have been given permission to share some of the many stories because everybody has a story.
Sure.
And I worked with this amazing man named Ralph, and he since passed away. But I met him because his accountant knew me. And so he was referred to me because his wife had passed away, and he wanted to get rid of the junk. And he called me in September, and his wife had died in June. And he said, I think we just need to get a dumpster. I said, oh, okay, well, tell me more about that. He said, well, it's just, if I need anything, then I'll just go buy it. So I don't really need anything. I was like, oh, okay, well, so we figured out a time that I would go to his home. And he lived in a very large home. It was over 5,000 square feet that they had built in the 70s, 60s. And nothing had really changed since the 60s. So, the orange shag and the really cool wallpaper. I mean,
avocado appliances, got it.
Well, it was really cool to me. So, so we had some conversations about what he was wanting to do, and the thing that he wanted to start with was the basement, her clothing in the bedroom, and her sewing area. And so there was a large quantity of items in the basement, and once I assessed to kind of see what there was, then I presented him with kind of some additional thoughts. I wasn't gonna, if he wanted to do a dumpster, then we would do what he wanted. I presented a plan where he could donate the sewing stuff to actually a prison where they have a sewing program. And so
what a good idea.
Yeah, so all of that went to the Lorraine Correctional Facility. There was many things that were of vintage, mid-century modern type things that
are all back in style
right?
again.
And so, there's the bomb shelter store that loves to buy those things. I brought them in to assess for some of that. And vintage clothing went to bomb shelter store as well, and some other local places. And then the clothing was donated to Salvation Army. There were things that were worthy of Habitat for Humanity Restore that we donated.
Yes, I love that organization.
I'll just say there was phases in our work together, and that was the first phase. Second phase was working with him in his office, and then he was starting to have a decline. He was 89. And he finally, for himself, realized that he would need to go and live near his daughter, his only daughter. And so then the next phase was to process the rest of the house where he lived, to donate, sell, and
or
then
move with him to the next.
He moved a very small amount of things because he lived in an assisted living.
Oh, okay.
But then it was working with the realtor to sell the house. I sold the car. There was, and there was.
Oh my word!
10,000,
I never thought about the cars.
Right, 10,000 pounds of paper that was recycled.
Seriously?
We had a shredding company come. So there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, Lynne, I frankly could sit here for 2.5 hours and talk about this. I really, really appreciate you being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Folks, if you want information about Lynne and her organizing services, I forgot the name of your business.
Wholly, WHOLLY, organized.
Wholly Organized. Are you online?
I am.
wholyorganized.com.
With a dash in the middle.
Dash in the middle. Or you know that you can email me at northof60hctv@gmail.com. And I'm going to keep Lynne's information with me. Let me know if you want it. And I strongly suspect that I will be using you in the future. I really think that this is a service that we could use.
Thank you
so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you, folks.